Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be taking a look actually at the first Transformer on the channel. This is Sideways we're looking at from Revenge of the Fallen. Before we get into the review, of course, let's get right into a little bit of the history of this guy. So Sideways has had a couple appearances over the years. His first major appearance was in the Unicron trilogy from Armada. He plays Baby's first cosmic horror, of course. Why I loved him so much. In fact, he was second only to Starscream as far as my favorite characters in that series. And he very much plays the Silver Surfer to Unicron's Galactus. He's super cool in that. I wish he had a more significant role than he did, but man oh man. Again, just my intro to cosmic horror as a child, and I will forever love him for that. Of course, when I found out he was going to be in the big Michael Bay sequel, Revenge of the Fallen, you bet I was excited, and treated promptly to him getting bisected after about 2 seconds of screen time, and we saw half of a frame of robot mode. So let's get right into the figure, because all I gotta say is the figure is a lot more exciting than the movie that he's a part of. So for those new to the channel, I have a grading scale of 1 through 5 and 3 core categories for reviewing, those being the sculpt and detail, the color and paint applications, and finally the articulation or the posing, just depending on what type of figure it is. And basically what we're going to do is add those categories, the totals from those categories up, and then divide them by the 3 core categories. We're going to add or subtract here or there, just depending on additional compounding factors like, what kind of accessories a figure comes with, or if the figure is constructed really well or really poorly. Once we get that, we divide those by the 3 categories to get our final grade. So, without further ado, let's hop right into it. Starting here with the sculpt and details on this guy, we can see that his face is absolutely beautifully sculpted out. Every detail on the concept of what this guy was supposed to look like is just beautifully brought in. And of course, there are some liberties taken with this figure because there was never really a final design shown in the film. Again, there was like that half a second clip of him jumping through the wall, but you can't really make out any of his main features. But looking at his chest, the details for the car that he's composed of is beautifully done. So you have all these little vents and everything. And I'm not a car girl, so I have no idea what these are actually called or if that is the proper term. But we can see all these mechanical bits here on his legs and on his little feet. And then taking a look here at his arms as well. You can see all the components that go from the car parts into the robot parts. One of the parts of the concept art that you can easily find is these little buzzsaw hand wheel things. And I love the fact that they incorporated them into the robot mode of this figure. They're not the best done, but just the fact that they went out of their way to incorporate a little bit of it is amazing, because I feel like they easily could have gotten away with not doing any of it. You can see his claws are nice, and they even give him a little bit of grabbing ability. Although we'll talk more about that with the articulation of this guy. But just proportionally and everything, he's got such a cool design. He's very top heavy, kind of awkward built, but it just makes him look kind of beefy, almost like a gorilla or something. He's just got these absolutely powerful looking arms. And I love the way that every little bit of it is sculpted out. Unfortunately, you do have a little bit of this with, the backs of the arms are kind of hollow. That sucks, but again, you're not really looking at this guy from that position. The doors of the cars here are really well done. I wish they didn't have these peg holes, but again, there's only so much you can really do with a figure like this. I like the fact here too, going back to the legs a little bit, you can really see the parts where they're trying to show pieces of the car that are being incorporated into the design with the silver. Now, once you get into the transformation, you'll know that these parts don't appear on the outside of the figure at all. They're purely aesthetic, but just again, really makes this guy look like he's actually changing into this form by rearranging all of his little bits. The wheels are nicely done too. I definitely feel like they could have done a little bit more with the wheels. but compared to the rest of the figure, it just does not detract from it at all. I definitely have to give this guy a 5 in terms of the detail and sculpting. I mean, even look at this guy on the back here too. I'm giving it a 5 just based on the front alone, but look at the back of this too. You have the whole back section of the car incorporated in such a way where you could see this guy from the back, and it would still be just an absolutely beautiful figure. So, just to emphasize again, we're giving him a 5 in this category. Sideways is so cool. Looking here now at the color and paint applications, this is definitely going to be his weaker point. You can see just taking a look here, like the paint that's done on the car bits here for the silver is absolutely beautifully done. Like I can't see any bleeding at all, just giving a quick look over the entire thing. And some of these are cast in a separate plastic, but you can see they're all painted. And again, it's very beautiful, but it's just looking at the silver and then looking at the entire rest of the figure, it's just all molded out in this dark gray plastic, which I think does work well, especially to keep costs down and keep him looking good. The problem is, of course, though, is just that it doesn't really add any variety to the color, and it makes it a little drab. I quite like it, especially for a Decepticon. I feel like it really works for the design that they're going for. But definitely this is going to be his weakest point, and I'm going to give him a 3. Again, the parts that are painted are really well done. It's just the fact that there's so little of it. Like the only real parts that are painted are a couple of these car bits that don't show, the outside of the car, and then the head. So it's not bad, but it's just, you know, they definitely could have done better with it. Coming now to the articulation, you can see that his little feet have some movement. His knee joints. He even has a swivel at the knee, which is super cool and gives him way more articulation at the knees. Just getting his legs into all kinds of crazy poses. His waist has a little swivel here. No crunch, but not like you really need it. His arms have movement at the shoulder and at the elbow. And the elbow is a ball joint, so you can get a lot of movement out of that. His hands are also movable at the fingers. You can see his thumb is separated from his other 3 digits. And it makes it so that you can get his hands into a lot of really neat poses, even without the hands themselves being posable. You can make him grab for things, make him punch things, make him do all kinds of stuff. I had him in a pose not too long ago over here, him just holding some presents for the holidays. His head also has some movement. You can see a little bit of side to side, a little bit of up and down. Nothing crazy, but honestly, this guy's articulation for these types of figures is impressive. These Studio Series Transformers, they aren't exactly known for their insane articulation, more so for their detail and just better than average articulation. But Sideways is something else. I have Grinder, I have Megatron, I have the RC Twins. Every other figure so far just pales in comparison to this guy. I'm gonna have to give him a 5. For the Transformers line, this guy is just, you can get him in all kinds of poses that you can't do for most figures. I know that's probably gonna be controversial for a lot of people, but I really stand by it. He is just an absolutely impressive model. Let's talk about his accessory here for a minute as well. He does come with a backdrop with the box, but I'm not a big fan of those personally. I think if you're going to take pictures, you're going to want to use something bigger and a little nicer anyways. So I'm just looking at his blaster here, but this just plugs into either arm, and then you can just tuck his thumb on, and it looks phenomenal. This already monstrous looking figure looks even better with the blaster in my opinion. I usually like just having it on him. It just looks like it naturally molds onto there on one of the hands. And then he's got his little monster hand in the other one. Super cool. I'm not going to add any points for this because it's pretty standard as far as accessories go. Nothing like phenomenal outside of the ordinary, not like a ton of shit or anything like that, but it is really nice and I'm super glad that they included this. Next, we're going to get into the size comparisons. So Sideways himself measures about 4.5 inches to the head, but if you're measuring to the top of the doors up here, it's about 6.5, so it's a pretty significant difference. I think the only reason you'd want to be concerned with that is if you're just worried about like an overhang or something if you're putting him in there. Because realistically, you are going to want him to be staring at people in the face or looking up to people, because compared to a lot of the bigger figures I have, he is quite puny. Let's show him next to some of the other figures I have here though. I've talked about him before, but here is the Studio Series Megatron, which you can see absolutely towers over the little guy. We have the Studio Series Grinder, which again, absolutely towers over this little guy. I love seeing the different sizes of everything though together. It's really cool. Here's also his #1 enemy, aside from Sideswipe, RC. Just RC, I'm not having the other two twins in here, but you can just see he towers over her. It's a really cool size comparison with all these guys. To bring in some other figures, here is the Bandai Tamashii Nations, the Robot Spirits Evangelion Unit 1. The HG model for the Astaroth Origin, if you collect any of the IBO kits. I am a huge collector. And just a quick Bandai figure with Kyria here. So now the moment everybody's been waiting for, I'm sure, the transformation for this guy. So there you have it. What we're gonna get is a final score of 13. Divide that down by 3 and we get about 4.3, which rounded down is gonna give us our first 4 for the channel, which I think is perfect for this guy. Sideways is absolutely beautiful. There's nothing about this figure that I don't like other than some of the wonky bits on the transformation, but he's definitely not a perfect figure by any means either. I'm sure at some point we will have a perfect 5 for the Transformers. A lot of them are just absolutely amazing figures, but this is an awesome figure that I'm so glad I picked up, and a cool 4 for the channel. Thanks again for joining me for this one, guys. If you'd like more toy content, check out my Instagram, @TrashBugToys. As always, I post a tie-in post for every review that I do, and then just a little odds and ends here and there. Not anything crazy. But of course, feel free to talk to me about what you're interested in. We do Transformers on here, as well as kaiju, dinosaurs, animals, all kinds of fun stuff like that. Definitely let me know if you're interested in checking something out in particular as well in the comments. And subscribe if you'd like to see more from me. You know, I'm pretty new to this, but I'm trying to get my bearings with it. If you have any feedback, please, please, please let me know. I'd love any room for improvement. As well as if you have toys in the future, even if I don't have them in my collection. Let me know what you want to see. I'm always happy to expand. Thank you again one more time, and next time on the channel we are going to be checking out the 2021 Mechagodzilla from Godzilla vs. Kong. A figure I had very different opinions about once I opened it and got to play around a little bit with it. In the meantime, take care and have a good night.